Good morning, everyone. Andy Hall. This is the Disappointed Cat Morning Show. We're going to do some fun. We're going to do some comedy. We're going to talk about the news. We're going to talk about how atheists are better than Christians regarding the death penalty here in the States. There's a new poll out. We're going to talk about that. But let's drop down some fun on this show.
And lo, I've made enough bread and fish for exactly 5,000 people. Yeah! Don't bring anyone else. Enjoy. Thank you, Jesus. Here you go. Ooh, Atlantic cod. Lovely. Bon appetit. Sorry, have you got any vegan options? Vegan options? Yeah, I don't eat fish. Well, just have bread then. Has it got gluten in it? Yeah. Oh, I can't have that then. Well, I don't really know what... Could you do a gluten-free loaf? I wouldn't even know where to start. What about some, like, tofu or something? No. I do eat eggs. Right. But only from chickens that didn't mind. Look, it's just... I've just got bread and fish. Oof. I'll just have bread then. Right, take it. Oof, sourdough.
All right. So I started. Did I start a little late this morning? I've been fixated on Bo Burnham's new special, and I've been watching his what I think is now my favorite song, "All Eyes on Me," from his special. And yeah. So that's what I was doing. I was listening to that before coming on the show for like the upteenth time, checking out the chat, see how everyone's doing. Jessi Bear, first one in this morning. Jessi Bear at 7:22 in the morning. Hello. Simply Secular Day from the West Coast. Got some bad news for the Canadians. I'm not going to lie to you. Got some bad news. Good news for the Aussies. Good news for the New Zealanders. Bad news for Canadians. Scott Duke, glad to see that you're here. Glenn Chesterton, always a pleasure, sir. Tobin Templeman. Have you seen the Bo Burnham special on Netflix? I don't know if you have Netflix or not, but it's musical. I guess it's comedy. It is funny. It is comedy, but it's some dark places, man. It's dark places. What? No dessert. Maybe some desert. Global warming. Maybe desert. Maybe a lot of desert. Blazing. Always good to see you here, sir. Blazing it up. Derek Cruz from North Carolina. Not surprised by the Pew poll. You've already seen the article, I'm sure. We're going to go for that, yeah. And Jess M, good morning. It is a good morning so far. It's been a rough night for me. I have some rules about how to manage my sleep disorder, everyone. And one of the rules is Andy shall not do work immediately before bed because that makes Andy wake up. Yeah, I'm talking about myself in the third person. I'm like Dr. Doom, right? So... and Andy wakes up at 3:30 in the morning and can't get back to sleep until like 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So I did some work immediately before I went to bed. I did some drinking last night too. We just happened to go down to a pub literally at the end of the hill here where I live and stumbled onto the first open mic, comedy wise, that this establishment has had since, I don't know, the beginning of the pandemic. So I got to listen to some of that, enjoyed it, didn't perform because I didn't know what was happening. Might get on stage next week. I don't know. We'll see what happens, right? See how saucy I feel. I have new material. Yeah. There should be some real trigger warnings with Bo Burnham songs because a lot of it, some dark undercurrents there. But they resonate with me, everyone. They resonate with me. Do I have beef? I'm going to pivot right now. I don't want to sound like I'm like Lenny Bruce reading off his divorce papers, his court proceedings, on stage. But if you're a content creator, you will know more than likely your most intelligent, your best work here on YouTube, the algorithm hates. I'm just going to say this right now. My recent interview with Monica Miller, who's the American Humanist Association legal director, that was a crappy screenshot. The actual thumbnail is much better. That was blurry. I'm sorry for that. But my recent interview with her It's been doing a little bit better than my normal videos, but most of the traffic I'm getting for that video from my hour-long conversation with Monica Miller, and she's like a person. She has argued cases in front of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I get a trickle of traffic for that conversation from YouTube. Most of it's from Patheos. A lot of it's from Facebook. A lot of it's from other sites, from Instagram, because she was kind enough to share the link on her account. So it always just befuddles me about how I'm fighting the algorithm. So if you're here and if you're subscribing, please hit the bell, because then you're more likely to at least see the videos that I do drop down that are good, but the algorithm hates. All right, that was my rant. Was that a rant? I don't know if that was a rant, chat, but I think we're going to do memes. Due to lockdown, out eating breakfast for the first time in months. Congratulations, Glenn Chesterton. Sorry, I go. I will say last night was pretty cool because I had these awesome French fries with the curry sauce on it. I like the curry sauce. I'm not going to lie to you. Doc Parsley Sleep Remedy. All right, you want to do memes, everyone, before we get into the news stories? Let's do some memes, right? Oh, what do we have? Oh, Texas. We remember the story that we covered yesterday, right? Maybe Texas should have been building a grid instead of a wall. Maybe if Jesus told people that they should be fortifying their electrical grid, maybe that would have... No, it wouldn't, because evangelicals don't actually listen or read the Bible to begin with. So they're more interested in building a wall. We covered the story yesterday, of course, that the electrical grid in Texas is failing due to the heat, just like it failed over the winter due to the cold and the winter storms. Here's something that'll make you happy. Put a smile on your face. God hates sin. And this gentleman in the background, flying the colors. Hail Satan. Hail Satan indeed. Hail Satan. I think that's probably the best thing that you can say when someone says they're going to pray for you. Be like, Hail Satan. 2 words. It tells the other person exactly where you stand. Last meme. Yeah, it's a cat-related meme, everyone. We can't do the show without at least some cat-related material. My husband said he was going to build a bed frame. I thought it was for our new mattress. It's for the cat. Look at how happy that cat is, though. That cat has a bed frame on its little cat bed. And look, there's a side table, too. How can you go wrong with that? How can you go wrong with that? All right, I'm going to check out the chat before we start. What's the first story? Oh, we're going to talk about the best cities to live in. And then we're going to talk about Christians and the death penalty. Don't worry. We're going to talk about how atheists are better than Christians. And this isn't just some kind of fan service, some kind of hand job, but there's data behind this, right? Hand job for us atheists, just to make us feel good. But yeah, we're going to get to that story, everyone. All right. Tesla Ranger. Well played, sir. Ted Cruz has his tickets to Cancun ready and waiting. I should do another joke about that. Thank you, Tesla Ranger. And this is what helps me actually developing my own material for my blog, Laughing in Disbelief, is that, my interactions with you. Because I wrote a piece about Ted Cruz during the winter apocalypse, and it got, it got on USA Today. It got on their website at least. So maybe if I do another Ted Cruz bit about him running to Cancun or somewhere else due to the electrical issue in Texas, that would be good, huh? All right. Blazing says, my cat doesn't need her own bed. She already claimed mine. Well, there you go. Joys of cat. All right. First news story, everyone. Let's do this. All right. So, world's most livable cities in 2021. A heavy blow to Canada, everyone. Heavy blow to Canada. A couple of their cities dropped out of the top 10. New Zealand has been significantly praised for its handling of the crisis, so it's perhaps no surprise that one of its cities has been named the world's most livable for 2021. Auckland came out on top on the Economist's Intelligence Unit's Global Livability Index of 140 cities around the world, thanks to its success in containing the pandemic quickly, enabling restrictions to be lifted early on. The annual list did not go ahead in 2020, but Austria's Vienna, number one in both 2018 and 2019, has completely dropped out of the top 10 after being heavily affected by COVID and now sits in the 12th place. So many of you know I'm a fan of The Economist magazine. I have a subscription to it thanks to my lovely girlfriend. And they do this every year, well, except for last year, about the most livable cities to be in. Although Asia-Pacific countries seem to have excelled, Canada, which has 3 cities, Calgary, Vancouver, and Toronto, near the top 2 years ago, has dropped out of the list, out of the top 10 entirely. At number 16, Vancouver is the highest Canadian city on the list. So Vancouver, we're looking at you, Vancouver. You're the top of the Canadian cities on this list. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the overall global average livability score has dropped by 7 points when compared with figures before the pandemic. The index takes into account more than 30 qualitative and quantitative factors spanning 5 broad categories: stability, healthcare, culture and environment, education, and infrastructure. I haven't seen the full list, and I'd be interested to see where Cambridge, Massachusetts is, as well as Somerville and Boston. I am curious if they're where they place. But do I have the complete list? Yes, I have. Well, I have a top 10 list and the bottom 10 lists. So you want to take a look at the top 10 list? Let's take a look. Links are in the description below, everyone. Auckland, New Zealand, number 1. Osaka, Japan, number 2. Adelaide, Australia, number 3. You know, you get the feeling that Australians are the ones who made this list of the most livable cities. Wellington, New Zealand, Tokyo, Japan, Perth, Australia, Zurich, Switzerland, Geneva, Switzerland, Melbourne, Australia, and Brisbane, Australia. So what? That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. 4 cities, most livable cities in 2021 are Australian, and 2 are from New Zealand. Congratulations, Australia and New Zealand. No American cities here. Who's surprised at that? That there's no. Okay, so when I say American cities, I'm talking about the United States of America, right? So who would have guessed that no city in the United States of America is on this list right here? Now you're going to ask me, are any cities in the United States of America on the bottom 10 list? Let's take a look. All right, so the quick answer is no. The least livable cities, Damascus, yeah, that's not surprising. Lagos. You know, there was a comedian who lives in the Boston area, or who lived in the Boston area. She had this story. She's from Nigeria, about her getting entrapped in one of the gutters, which, from what I understand about Lagos, it's a pretty serious matter if you fall into the gutter, because serious things happen there. Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Dhaka, Bangladesh, Algiers, Algeria, Tripoli, Libya. Well, they're in a civil war. Karachi, Pakistan, Harare, Zimbabwe. I haven't heard anything about Zimbabwe for a while. Are they still having out of control inflation? I don't know. Douala, Cameroon, and of course Caracas, Venezuela, where thanks to the military government there, that things have been horrible in that country for quite a while. I'm going to check out the chat before we go to the next story about how Republicans like Vladimir Putin more than Joe Biden. And I know this comes to a surprise to all of you. Let's check it out. Gary Priestley, how you doing? I like all the smiley faces. I don't even know what you're smiling about, but I like the smiley faces. I know, Gary Priestley, right? 6 out of 10 of the most livable cities in the world are Australia and New Zealand. I suppose likelihood to survive a pandemic seems to poll well. Yes. In terms of the apocalypse, if your city is safer than all the other cities, it's going to do well in the livability scale. Hey, Glenn Davis. Incredibly talented guy, close friend of mine. He actually watched Biscuit for a number of days while the girlfriend and I were in Colorado. He has a great site. He is and I'm going to make him a moderator right now, Glenn. He is a very talented watercolor painter. And if you know anything about watercolor, it's an unforgiving medium from what I understand. So I just made him moderator. Glenn, if you want to drop a link down to your site, you can now do so. All right. Putin probably rigged the poll. He probably did. Or maybe he doesn't need to rig the poll since the Republican base hates Biden anyway. Simply Secular Dave. Do you live in a city slowly being wiped out by COVID, leaving only pirates and drug lords to rule the land? Maybe you should move to Australia. That's basically the poll, right? Yeah. You should either go to Australia or New Zealand. Let's see. What else? What else is going on here in the chat? Oh, you had a phone call. Well, that's what happens. As many of you know, we do the after party after show where it's an open room. Today, because I have to go to work early, I can only do it from 10 to 10:30. The link to the backstage is in the description below, everyone. If you want to join us, we can have a lovely 30-minute conversation. All right. West Coast is the best coast. That's right, Vancouver in Canada. There you go. All right, glenndavis.com. There's his site, everyone. You can check him out. Talented guy. You could probably buy some of his paintings there, too, if you really wanted to. All right. So let's talk about Putin. Let's talk about Republicans. Let's talk about the mess. The mess. We'll just call it the mess. How's that? I'm going to share the screen. And I'm going to hit some lovely buttons. And here it comes now.
Hold higher than Joe Biden among Trump voters. A new Economist YouGov poll shows that 90% of Trump supporters had a favorable view of Putin. Only 9% of Trump voters have a favorable view of President Biden. Compared to other world leaders, the poll shows Putin's favorability is on par with Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, among Trump voters.
Yeah, I mean, Willie, guys, you look at these numbers, and Vladimir Putin, Trump voters actually have higher favorability ratings for Vladimir Putin, a guy who has invaded 2 European countries over the past 13, 14 years, shot down an airliner of civilians, continues to kill journalists and politicians that he doesn't like. And so these Trump voters have a higher favorability rating for him than the democratically elected leaders of Canada, of France, and of the United States of America. Now, where I came from in the Deep South, we would just call that un-American and would say, America, love it or leave it. Growing up, there are no words, but this is a trend that's been going for some time. Can you imagine saying you have a more favorable rating, more favorable feelings for Vladimir Putin than the democratically elected presidents of 3 Western democracies?
No, I can't, but an awful lot of people in this country can, apparently. Actually, I'm surprised the 19% is as low as it is, given the way that Donald Trump has talked about Vladimir Putin in somewhat glowing terms. But 9% for the sitting president of the United States. And Congressman Kinzinger, it gets at your point. That will shock people who watch this show. It will shock many Americans. But if you live in the information bubble where Joe Biden is the villain, Joe Biden is incompetent, Joe Biden is a bad president and a bad person, and that his family is corrupt, and all the things that they've been hearing for the last couple of years, that number actually makes perfect sense inside that bubble.
Yeah, well, look, I'll say, from my party's perspective, I think 19%, it's obviously extremely high, at least.
All right. You got the message. You got the data. You got the frequency that Republicans hate Joe Biden. But they have double the amount have a favorable feeling towards Putin over Joe Biden. Yeah, I mean, for those of us who are older, let's say that, can you imagine during the midst of the Cold War that there would be a Soviet premier who'd be more popular than the sitting U.S. president amongst Republicans? I mean, it would be something like Jimmy Carter, right? Jimmy Carter being less popular amongst Republicans than Leonid Brezhnev. I think that's the comparable Soviet leader there. It's absurd. It just shows you the kind of trouble that we are in this country. You can check out the chat. He is Putin. Yeltsin had a chance to get rid of the KGB when he took office. He decided not to, and that was the fatal flaw. One of the flaws of the Yeltsin administration, right there. Remember Samy Jenkins? If the Mail reporter had a pitchfork, would have exactly like American Gothic. Exactly. You got to stay in frame. That's what the producer was telling you. You got to get close together. You got to just look into the camera. And yes, very American Gothic. Well, Trump voters love corruption, and you're right about that, Tesla Ranger. They love corruption. They'll call it patriotism. They'll call any vice patriotism. Trump voters will, right? Shooting black men in the back, patriotism. Corruption, patriotism. Well, this is a good point. Tesla Ranger. Putin is quote unquote former KGB. Now what's the security services name? It's the FSB. All right. I think I'm caught up with everyone here. Let's go to the next story. You want to do the next story? What's the next story? Oh, college costs. I was talking with someone the other day about the price of college. No, it was Godless Granny. I was on B's channel, and Godless Granny was on. And she has a few years on me, not a whole lot. We're about the same age. And she was talking about how cheap law school was back in the 1980s. And it's difficult for students today to understand. But for those of you who are smart and who understand what a 9% increase in college costs per year mean, then you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. It's a 9. The last time I heard, the number was college prices go up 9% every year. And so what was affordable back in the 80s or even in the 90s, now you're walking with tons of debt. And that's what this story is about. The average female college grad gets a $35,000 starting salary. Not much more than the typical borrower's student debt load report finds. Gonna let that sink. $35,000 starting salary when your college costs, when your bills, when your loans are that. Americans hold up, I'm just gonna say words that we should all know, that this college loan debt, just like your car loan, just like your mortgage payment or the incredibly high paying rent that you have, it creates serfs. It creates wage slaves. It creates a population afraid. It creates a population just worried about the next paycheck. And that's what oligarchs want. They want us to be enslaved in debt from the day that you're born to the day that you die, so that you don't ask too many questions because you're so concerned about surviving from day to day. All right. Americans hold a 1.7 trillion student debt burden, but new data indicates that women bear a greater portion of that burden, no surprise, which is exacerbated by gender pay gaps. The American Association of University Women, a nonprofit that advances equity for women, released a new report that found that among those taking out student loans, women borrowed an average of $31,276, while men borrowed an average of $29,720. Women also have more difficulty paying off those loans, given that women who graduate with a bachelor's degree expect to earn $35,338 their first year out of college, 81% of what men expect to earn, the report said, citing the latest available figures. The report said it was difficult and sometimes impossible for women to make ends meet with such low salaries relative to expenses. A year after college, women spent an average of $920 a month on housing, $396 per month on car loans or leases, and for 16.3% of the women who have a child, $520 on childcare, according to the most recent data, the report said. When you factor in an average of $307 per month on student loan payments, the numbers add up to an unsustainable budget. Black women, and this is not going to come to any surprise to anyone who is listening to this, watching, Black women hold more of the student debt burden than white women. The report said that 1 year after graduation, Black female borrowers owed $41,466 in student debt on average, compared to the $33,800 or so for white female borrowers. And that's the effect of systemic racism. That's the effect that due to the laws regarding property ownership that was around during the 40s and the 50s, 60s, redlining, certain communities, people who weren't white couldn't get into loans being higher for people who were Black to get into home ownership. There is this disparity of wealth. It's a disparity of wealth. Intergenerational wealth doesn't really exist in a meaningful way. And when that doesn't happen, then of course your college loans are going to be higher than white people who typically we do have more, when you look at the statistics, we have more intergenerational wealth. I'm going to check out the chat. Well, you're right, Jessi Bear. And here's the thing, right? We've covered this too about how the population is imploding, right? It's going to be a story we'll be hearing about, in the next 10 or 20 years, even more. But the population is imploding because people cannot afford childcare. They cannot afford to have children. That's one of the factors. And until the government, until employers, until society treats having children as a job unto itself, the population is going to continue to implode. Oh, well, Cryptameria, of course. If guys got pregnant, the world would be very different. Indeed. Well, redlining, yeah. There was redlining. A lot of the suburban, subdivisions during the 40s and the 50s, they had contracts. Basically, they prevented Black Americans from owning property in these new affordable suburbs. Well, this is true. Childcare workers are also underpaid. Most make minimum wage. Indeed. Well, that's what happens when you have an oligarchical system. That's what happens when the people in power have the money and they want to keep their power and their money. We could say thank you to the Reagan tax cuts. Andy, you're always ranting about the Reagan tax cuts. Well, that's because that was really one of the prime moments that set us up for Trump, that set us up for fascism in this country, and theocracy too at the same time. Simply Secular Dave mentions from the earlier story, the GOP almost had a majority of U.S. voters convinced that democracy wasn't the best way to choose a leader. Indeed. All right. Let's do halftime show, halftime tummy rub. Halftime tummy rub show. Something funny, gonna drop something clever. Oh, something funny, right? Well, let's see what we do.
I only watch girl on girl. I don't want to see a guy naked.
Chase Wood, definitely gay.
No, I don't hang out with gay guys. What if they try to hook up with me?
Chase Wood, definitely gay.
How do girls not expect us to look at their boobs? Boobs are so nice to look at, right?
Chase Wood. Follow for more definitely gay quotes.
I'm going to play it again because I love it so much.
I only watch girl on girl. I don't want to see a guy naked.
Chase Wood. Definitely gay.
No, I don't hang out with gay guys. What if they try to hook up with me?
Chase Wood. Definitely gay.
How do girls not expect us to look at their boobs? Boobs are so nice to look at, right?
Chase Wood. Follow for more definitely gay quotes.
Oh, that was beautiful. Mother's milk. That's what that was. All right. Tummy Rub. Yes. Simply Secular Dave. Tummy Rub halftime show. That's it. That's what we're doing here. All right. I see what you did there, Blazing. I see what you did there. Well said. Well played, sir. All right. So we're going to talk about how atheists are better than Christians. Are we going to talk about how atheists are better than Christians? Yeah. I said it. I qualified it a bit in the title of the video. I probably would have gotten more likes, right? Oh, please like the video too, right? I have it on my cheat sheet. I should ask people to like the video, to hit the like button, to smash so however you want to interact with the like button, as long as you hit it, that would be swell. All right, next story. What are we covering? Oh, yep, here it is. Here it is. Atheists overwhelmingly oppose the death penalty. Most Christians favor it. Are you shocked? Are you shocked that people who typically believe in a deity that tortures people for eternity are for the death penalty? Are you surprised that people who don't believe in that deity are against the death penalty? No, but these points are important to point out. And I'm going to say this about the moral superiority of the average atheist against the average evangelical. Right? The data's there, people. Let's take a look. This is from the Friendly Atheist. Okay, it's from the Friendly Atheist site. It wasn't written by Hemet, but the links are in the description below, everyone. All right, let's go with this. Well, conservatives claim to have pro-life values. This confirms what we know. They don't. The Pew Research Center recently released a poll concerning views on the death penalty. Yesterday, they published their results broken down by religious groups. When asked if they supported the death penalty for people convicted of murder, the faith-based breakdown was striking. I'm not going to show you the whole charts because the charts are confusing. If you want to see the charts, the description is below. But let's take a quick snippet of the data. Roughly 2/3 of atheists and 6 in 10 agnostics either strongly or somewhat oppose the death penalty for people convicted of murder. Meanwhile, 60% of adults overall favor the death penalty, including 75% of white evangelical Protestants and 73% of white non-evangelical Protestants, according to the survey, which conducted in early April. So let's take a look at this again. 2/3 of atheists, 6 in 10 agnostics either strongly or somewhat oppose the death penalty for people convicted of murder. Meanwhile, hey, take a look at those white evangelical Protestants. 75% of them support the death penalty convicted of murder. I don't know how it's possible to be rational. And when you look at how crappy the police how crappy policing is in this country. And let's face it, courts are made out of, have juries on them. And jurors are not colorblind people. They are not, they bring their own prejudices in. Let's see. Pew also asked respondents whether the death penalty was moral, whether it deterred people from committing serious crimes, and whether it included the risk of executing innocent people. There are some notable differences. For example, white evangelicals, they are the baddies. We're nearly twice as likely as black Protestants to believe that the death penalty deters people from committing serious crimes. There's no proof, there's no evidence that the death penalty disincentivizes crime. Given the systemic racial bias in the application of the death penalty, that makes sense. Also interesting was the difference between white evangelicals and atheists, whose results were not broken down by race, regarding whether the death penalty was morally wrong. Among 3/4 of white evangelicals believe it is moral, while only half feel the same way. I would like to talk to an atheist who believes that the death penalty is moral. Because when you consider the fact that, we don't have souls, right? I mean, atheist skeptics, or at least skeptics, all right. I mean, there might be some atheists who believe that we have a soul. But outside, and this is my anti-free will argument too, by the way, is that we are just really wet robots. And I just don't see how killing off people is merciful or moral, especially by the state, especially by an imperfect state. And even if the state was perfect, even if we knew 100% that a person killed another person, shouldn't we be focusing on rehabilitation? Check out the chat. Well, Tesla Ranger, if there's one thing that we've seen, all right, during the pandemic, one, like him or hate him, Sigmund Freud seemed to be spot on when he talked about the death instinct. I believe, he wasn't very original with it. He called it Thanos, right? That there is some kind of death instinct, and it seems that Christianity is a death cult. I see what you did there, Jessi Bear. My husband last night. Well, have atheists ever killed people over a supernatural idea? Nope, not at all. Not at all. Wait a minute. It's funny how the numbers for the evangelicals match the illiteracy rates. Interesting. I like that. I like that a lot. Tesla Ranger points out, "Thou shalt not kill, and thou shalt read the fine print." Right. Well, I love it when Christians will say that. Yeah, really what they meant. Let me tell you what God meant in that sentence, in that commandment. God says not to murder people, but it's fine to kill people. They love that line. All right. So that's why atheists are better than Christians. Well, one of the reasons. At least with the evangelicals. I will say this for the Catholic Church, though they're a bunch of kid effers, that they are officially against the death penalty. So, good job, Catholic Church. Bunch of kid effers. All right. So, Foo Fighters. You want to talk about the Foo Fighters? Foo Fighters. David Grohl. So, well, supposedly he's one of the nicest guys in rock and roll. Right? And he's pissing off certain Trump-supporting lunatics. Foo Fighters held a show for vaccinated fans only. Anti-vaxxers, including former child star Ricky Schroeder, protested outside. How much? Ricky Schroeder has too much time on his hands. We covered the story about how he yelled at a Costco employee. There's a regular everyday Costco employee. They're making like a little bit over minimum wage, and he's yelling at them. And he posted on social media, of course, because Ricky Schroeder was really proud about him yelling at a Costco employee about masks. And then Ricky Schroeder, how many times can I say that name in one sentence? I feel dirty. My mouth feels dirty. And then he makes this apology, which is a horrible apology. He's like, I'm sorry about yelling at this Costco employee, but it was for the greater good. That was his basic argument. And so now he's there protesting the Foo Fighters. I mean, for F's sake, Ricky Schroeder, get a hobby. Have you thought about knitting? Maybe you can't do so many crazy things when your hands are occupied. He should just take up knitting. I don't know what other hobbies Ricky Schroeder should take up. All right, let's just look at the story. Anti-vaccine protesters demonstrated on Tuesday outside a Foo Fighters concert in California that allowed only vaccinated fans, Variety reported. On Saturday, the rock band announced an intimate show at the Canyon Club in Agora Hills, ahead of a larger performance with similar requirements at Madison Square Garden in New York City on June 20th. Attendees had to show proof that they were 21 or over and vaccinated in order to pick up their non-transferable tickets at the club on Sunday, Rolling Stone reported. Variety reported that the protesters appeared to be joined by Ricky Schroeder, a former child star. Dave Grohl is an ignorant punk who needs slapped for supporting discrimination. All right, so let's just look at this sentence, and I'm sorry for this sentence. So Dave Grohl is an ignorant punk who needs slapped for supporting discrimination with a capital D. At least it wasn't all in caps. My friends, Schroeder wrote this in a Facebook post on Sunday, referring to the Foo Fighters frontman. Ignorance comes in all shapes and sizes, and so does poor grammar. Kurt Cobain is laughing at you, Dave, along with millions of patriots. Of course, the M is capitalized as well as the P. Ellipse, fool. Well, he does, Ricky Schroeder does seem to write in the same way that Donald Trump tweets. Poorly, with a low grasp of the English language. Schroeder and Foo Fighters record label did not immediately respond to Insider's request for comment. So I'm just going to read this sentence again because there's so many things. David Grohl is an ignorant punk who needs slapped for supporting discrimination. Yeah, Ricky Schroeder, get a hobby. Knitting. I don't know what other things he could be doing, chat. I mean, we can't ask him to rehabilitate himself. We can't ask him to become aware of the facts. But maybe if there's, and this is what, psychologists do, right? Therapists do. It's like, well, maybe, we should try, you're doing this aberrant behavior, this maladaptive behavior. How about we start you doing something a little bit more beneficial? So at least you're not spending all your time on this maladaptive behavior. What if you do something else with your time at Ricky Schroeder, as against to yelling at people in Costco and picketing David Grohl concerts, the Foo Fighters concerts? And let's face it, I'm going to say it. David Grohl, more talented than Kurt Cobain. I just said it. He is such a tool, Cryptameria. He's such a tool, Ricky Schroeder. And he's just an example of the losers, right, that love Donald J. Trump. When you look at the Nazis, right, and the her circle of the Nazis, you had, especially in the early days, you had a pack of lunatics there. Funny how they hate discrimination only when it happens to them. Well, that's right, Tessa Ranger. Hey, Dragons and Genesis here? I didn't know the Dragons was Genesis in here. Hey, Jason, hope you're doing well, sir. Who is this? What was he in? He was in Silver Spoons, right? When he was like a kid. Like he was in Silver Spoons. I think it was in early 90s comedy sitcom. See what you did there, Dave. Oh, Ricky, what a pity you don't understand. All right. We'll see what else is going on. Yeah. Well, thank you, Glenn. Happy to finally catch a show. Every other time it's been after the fact. Oh, yeah. Well, we're doing the pub crawl on the 27th, my friends, for my birthday. In case you're in the Cambridge area, Massachusetts, you're welcome to join in. All right. Early 1980s. Thank you, Cryptameria. And yes. Okay. So Silver Spoons, Ricky Schroeder. It was the early 80s. And he was in NYPD Blue. I'm not a big fan of the police procedurals, to tell you the truth. But yes, definitely. That's NYPD Blues, indeed. Hey, Dragons of Genesis, congratulations on getting your vaccine. The 5G hasn't kicked in yet, but no side effects either. Well, hopefully when you're connected to the hive, like the rest of us, vaxes, people who've gotten the vaccine, we'll be able to telepathize. We'll be able to exchange thoughts via the telepathic 5G network. What stories did we cover today, everyone? I talked about the algorithm, about how YouTube partly makes us all stupid. The importance of please hitting the bell, because I drop a lot of good content, intelligent content that most of the traffic for is through Facebook or Pathos or Instagram or Twitter. You know, I would say that the good stuff that I do, the real smart, well, I mean, the other people are smart. I'm just a fool asking them questions. But like, you know, the conversation I had with Monica Miller, the humanist lawyer who argued cases in front of the Supreme Court, you know, most of the traffic does not come from YouTube for that. So if you hit the bell, it would help. Let's see. So what else? The non-ranty. Well, I think I ranted about a bunch of things. Cities, the best places to live. Australia and New Zealand, 6 out of 10. They're in the, you know, 6 cities out of the top 10. Good job, Australia and New Zealand. Female college costs, or college debt is high. It's higher in comparison to men's. And of course, black women getting out of college have higher debt than white women. The death penalty. Why Americans are better. Why atheists are better than evangelicals. We're just not in favor of the death penalty by and large. The Foo Fighters. Good job, Dave Grohl, in triggering Ricky Schroeder. And of course, Vladimir Putin is more popular amongst Trump supporters than Joe Biden. That's what we covered today. All in 46 minutes, plus throwing in jokes, plus talking with you all. You know, hey, John Hudson. Glad to see that you're here. I'm going to throw in the fun video. End off things with a laugh, hopefully.
I responded to your text in my head, but apparently I forgot to send it.
Yeah, I've done that. It's like, oh, the text. I think of the response. I get distracted. I put my phone away. And then I go on. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this morning. Right? We're going to do the after party after show. It's only from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. If you join me in the chat, I might, I have to do some work related stuff too, because I'm looking for another job. I might have to make a phone call. I might have to receive a phone call. I don't know. And if it is, then I'll have to jump out of the chat for a little while. I mean, outside of the show, and let my smarter, brighter, more witty panelists handle the show for a bit. So that's just what I'm saying right now. We'll see what happens. Let me do the thank you video for YouTube members and patrons. I'll see you at 10 o'clock, everyone.